world is on fire, ladies and gentlemen, and apparently so is Piers Morgan's crazy ass panel. I think you guys have been waiting for this one. Cenk Uygur had a debate with Professor Allan Lichtman, the guy who is, I guess, the father of the 13 keys, the guy who has predicted every presidential election, I think since the mid 80s until 2024. There were a number of us that were right about our prediction that Donald Trump would win 312, but Allan Lichtman was not right about his. He predicted that Kamala Harris would win this election, and now it seems like people are not letting him live it down. We're going to bring in this clip here. Oh my God. Get ready to laugh, ladies and gentlemen. This is hilarious. Piers Morgan starts off the lineup here, and he wants to ask Allan what went wrong. What went wrong?
I think that's right.
Latino men suddenly went towards Trump.
I
don't know what happened.
I went on Fox News 10 days before with Brian Kilby and said, I think he's going to win big. But actually, most people thought we'd be incredibly tight and it could go either way and so on. But it wasn't that at all. Why do you think Trump is so difficult to poll? Which is clearly the conclusion I would draw from this.
Well, you know, I am forthrightly willing to admit I missed this election. I still think I actually had 10 out of 10 before. I think I was right about 2000, but we're not here to litigate that. I still think it's a pretty good record. Now, I think two things are operating here. Number one, I was incredibly critical at the time of the spineless, cowardly Democrats openly and viciously trashing their elected president and their elected nominee right out there in the open. I have never seen that before, and I've studied American politics since the founding, and that tainted any nominee. And they're now taking no responsibility for that. They're blaming everybody else. Until they look in the mirror, the Democratic Party is going to be in trouble. Second.
Pause. I just want to remind everyone that Allan Lichtman has had multiple opportunities to change his prediction. And every time he was interviewed after he made his prediction, he said, I will not change my prediction. I don't change it. Whether the polls change or whatever, I'm not going to change my prediction. So just keep that in mind when you hear him saying the things that happened.
Why did my keys miss? Because my keys are based upon the proposition that a pragmatic, rational electorate decides whether or not the White House party is governed well enough to get 4 more years. That was exploded this time by a new wave of disinformation that we've never seen before. In addition to the usual sources of disinformation, we had a huge change this time. A 300 billionaire, a guy who's richer than most countries of the world, who controls X, spreading vast disinformation. According to reports, billions upon billions of viewers saw his disinformation.
I just want to add here again, the majority of the voters that are over the age of 65, and those are the ones who typically are reliable voters, if we're looking at the data, are not on Twitter. So there's that.
People have a completely distorted view of the economy.
What was the disinformation?
Inflation is going up.
Let me pin you down on that, though. You say Elon Musk was spreading disinformation. Like what?
Yes. He is spreading vast disinformation that's sunk in. Even people who think their own financial situation is pretty good think inflation is going up when it's been cut by 75%, that unemployment
but it's still
is
inflation.
a near high when
it's
it's
still inflation,
near
Professor.
A low.
On that point, see, that's interesting. You would say that's disinformation, but the point is that inflation is still not zero. Therefore, prices are still going up. Therefore, people...
The only way you get inflation to zero is with a recession.
Yeah, but here's my point.
Obviously.
Here's my point. Yeah, but here's my point. Democrats kept telling the American people rather arrogantly, I thought, the economy's in really good shape. Meanwhile, inflation still exists. In other words, prices have continued to go up and up and up, albeit not at the same rate they were going up. But if it wasn't zero, and it wasn't, it was like 2.5% or whatever by the end, that is still inflation. So it's not disinformation to say Americans are still suffering.
Let me pause here for a second. First of all, I'm not even, let's say, just put inflation aside. People can tell the difference between the grocery prices. Raise your hand if you do the grocery shopping in your house. So I do the grocery shopping. So I know how much I'm able to get and how much that's usually going to cost. At one point, I remember I could spend $200 and that would get us enough food for the month. For the month. Next thing I know, and I buy the same stuff for the most part. Next thing I know, 200 went to like 300 and 350. I mean, it's, you know, like he thinks people don't notice that the price of steak costs more. That like chicken meat, especially like chicken breasts cost more. He think people don't notice that. Does Allan Lichtman look at prices, or is he able to just go to the grocery store and just buy stuff and not pay attention? Maybe he's not affected, right? So he thinks people don't notice these things. For those of us that do the grocery shopping, we know how much we could usually get for like 100, 150, 200. We know. And I go to the cheap grocery store. So what you know, it's disinformation that people aren't able to afford the groceries like they could.
Zero is a recession, is deflation. That's ridiculous. Inflation has been cut by 80%, but it's not just inflation that people are wrong about.
But do you accept inflation means prices are still going up? Do you accept prices were still going up?
Of course.
Right, so that's
always
the point.
do, unless you have a recession.
That's not disinformation.
That's ridiculous.
Then, is it? By Elon Musk,
and it's disinformation about every other aspect of the economy as well. Disinformation about undocumented immigrants.
Pause. This is a good point here, William Charles. My electric bill doubled too. That's another thing that people have noticed. Depending on where you live, your electric bill may have also been increasing.
It's like they're bloodthirsty killers. They are the most law-abiding segment of our society. According to numerous studies, including by the Libertarian Cato Institute, they commit crimes, including violent crimes, less than half of that of Native Americans. And they don't drain our economy. They are the mainstay of the agricultural, construction, personal service, hospitality industries.
Okay, I don't think the majority of people that voted for Donald Trump voted for him because of, you know, the stuff about people eating cats and dogs. I don't think the majority of people voted for them because of that. When it comes to the immigration issue, I think the majority of people that voted based on that particular policy is because of the border. I don't think most people that voted for Trump said, I'm gonna go vote for him because they're telling people that Haitians are eating cats and dogs and stuff. I do not think so, man. I don't think so.
Studies show you will drive the economy into a recession if you go through large-scale deportation of immigrants, and you will sweep huge numbers of U.S. citizens because all the databases used to identify undocumented immigrants are fundamentally flawed. You can't have a pragmatic electorate under these conditions, and the mainstream media is utterly feeble. It spends 20 times more time on meaningless polls within the margin of error than it does telling truth to power and indicating the consequences of this election.
But
I'm sorry, but some of the polls that I showed on this show ended up being correct, right? RCP was very close. Atlas was very close. Emerson got it wrong. Like I showed you left polls and right wing polls, but some of the polls I showed you got it right. So it just, you know.
It's
okay,
been taken over by billionaires.
Okay, I'm going to come to Cenk. I mean, Cenk, you know, the biggest deporter in American presidential history was Barack Obama, who deported over 3 million people. This idea that Trump is going to become, you know, some outlier in terms of mass deportation. The great mass deporter was actually a Democrat president, Obama, by a long way, by the way. So this idea of like disinformation, I think some of it was disinformation, but it's, you know, I think the idea that this election was only won through right-wing disinformation, I'm afraid, I view that as a total delusion by the Democrats. Again.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm sorry, but I totally disagree with Juan and Professor Lichtman. Don't blame the voters. I think, look, we could get into this discussion, but Juan, I think you're blaming the voters. I think that's a terrible idea. And look, I debated Professor Lichtman before. I told him his theories about the keys were absurd. I was right. He was wrong. I said he'd lose his keys.
No, you were
couldn't
not
find
right,
them before
and
the
I was
election.
not wrong. And that's a cheap shot, and I won't stand for it.
Well, who won, brother?
You should not be taking cheap shots.
Oh, God, Allan Lichtman is very offended there. Like, Cenk didn't even finish what he was saying. He says that Cenk Uygur is taking cheap shots. Like, he just jumped in and was like, no, you are not right. This is how faculty behaves, guys. I worked with professors for years in higher ed, and this is really how they behave. They really think that nobody else is smarter than them. Nobody knows more than them. Who's this guy and where does he think he's coming from? How dare you tell me that I'm not wrong? This is the problem. They stay within their little academic bubble and they believe that nobody can tell them shit.
At me.
Who
you
won?
Want to make your
You
point,
live
make your
in
point.
a total
Don't make
world
it
of
personal.
denial.
I read your own followers' comments, and they all trashed you, every one of them, and supported me.
Yeah,
so quiet with your personal attacks.
Come find out again.
Make whatever point you want. Don't make it personal.
You don't know anything. You don't know
you
anything.
You attacked me personally.
You're so deluded.
All right. I've only been a professor for 51 years.
On this program, I've never been able to finish a thought.
How many books have you?
Did everybody hear what he just said? Here comes I did all this. I published 13 books. So, oh dear God, because you published 13 books, nobody can tell you that you're wrong. This is the white liberal classist bullshit that I was talking about. If you don't have a PhD, if you haven't published 13 books, which by the way, I consider 13 to be a pretty unlucky number there, Allan, you might want to write another book. Anyway, if you haven't done those things, you can't tell them that they're wrong. It's classist. It comes from these faculty members, especially a lot of white liberals. This is what they think. This is what they think. Cenk, you didn't write 13 books, so you can't really tell me that I'm wrong.
Published. No, because you're personally attacking me again. Say whatever you want, but I'm not going to stand for
brother, you got it wrong.
Say
were
whatever you want.
Preposterously and stupidly wrong. So, okay, all right. Can I just finish a goddamn thought ever on this show?
No, not if you're personally. I admitted I was wrong. I don't need you to call me stupid.
Okay.
Can I just say, it's great to see you Democrats all getting along so well.
Who taught you manners?
It's lovely to see a post-election harmony as you all come together again.
We're just one right now.
Hey, Allan, you deserve a tall glass of shut-up juice, so can you just shut up for a second? And
let's go back, because look at what Allan Lichtman did with his arms. Watch this.
I admitted I was wrong. I don't need you to call me stupid.
Okay.
Can I just say, it's great to see you Democrats all getting along so well.
Who taught you manners?
Who taught you manners? Here comes the classist attitude. You guys, what I was telling you about? What I tell you? Here comes the classist attitude. Who taught you manners? If I remember correctly, Allan Lichtman interrupted Cenk Uygur first. So, Allan, who taught you manners? Oh my gosh.
It's lovely to see a post-election harmony as you all come together again.
We're just one right now.
Hey, Allan, you deserve a tall glass of shut-up juice, so can you just shut up for a second?
Notice how he folded his arms? He's like a big baby. Cenk said, shut up, juice. He folded his arms like this. Like, how old are you? He's pouting. Allan Lichtman is seriously sitting here pouting. He's like, what, 70? I think like 70-something years old. My mom she used to tell me, she said, men can be big babies. No offense to the dudes watching, but my mom used to tell me, she said, men can be big babies sometimes, right? Look how he just folds his arms. Like, get out of here.
And let someone who knows what they're doing.
You're so right, Pierce. You're so right. We're so unified right now.
So I will not sit here and stand for personal attacks, for blasphemy against me. You don't need to do that. You don't
blasphemy against you. What the hell are you? Are you Jesus Christ, you loser? Okay, can I just give the correct answer for once? Okay, here we go. So, guys, you're blaming disinformation. There was disinformation. There was the cats and the dogs nonsense. The points you're making about undocumented immigrants, I agree with, Allan, okay? But that didn't cost the election. The main disinformation was about how the election was going to be rigged. And it wasn't rigged. It was dumb. They won easily. There was no need for that disinformation. You guys are missing the whole point. The people who are at fault are not other people. It is the candidate, Kamala Harris, the previous candidate, Joe Biden, Democratic Party, Democratic leadership. You guys don't want to admit that they're the problem. They're the cancer in the Democratic Party. So you blindly lash out at the voters, at information, at social media, and you want to shut down anyone who disagrees with you. That's not the correct answer. There are three wings of the Democratic Party. There's the establishment wing that the great majority, almost everyone on television supports and kisses the ass of and does propaganda for. That wing has led to disaster. They lost to Donald Trump twice, nearly lost to him 3 times. And then the other wing is called the progressive wing, but those are two different sets of people. In the progressive, so-called progressive wing, what you have is the identitarian left, the people who do what the right wing would call woke politics and identity politics, and that is disastrous. That's what the trans ad was at the end, and it cost us. The most popular part of the Democratic Party is the populist left. That is the Bernie Sanders 2016 campaign. That part says, let's do super popular economic proposals like paid family leave, higher minimum wage, universal health care, public option. Let's do all of these things. And the establishment goes, no, our corporations don't want that. Our donors don't want that. So we'll just do identity politics. And maybe identity politics will unite the left. But it didn't. Identity politics led to disaster. It was a poison within the Democratic Party, used ironically by the establishment Democrats because they didn't want to talk about popular proposals that we have because their donors hate those proposals.
Okay.
So I have to agree with Cenk there. Like it's true. Like the Democratic Party took identity politics and put it on steroids. Like, and they really thought we can just rely on this. And then they really like went overboard with it, and people didn't fall for it this time. And I just, like Allan Lichtman, like he's really angry. Like you see the look on his face, like he is really not happy that someone told him that he was wrong, but you were wrong. So like a number of people I talked to with, like I said, their vote wasn't based on what they saw on Twitter. Their vote was based on prices. Their vote, and by the way, it's not just groceries. I was at the convenience store earlier today, even at the, well, I guess gas station / convenience store. So it's not just groceries, it's other things too. Like go to the gas station, go to your local gas station or convenience store and buy something that's not food and see if the price is increased. So it just, but man, like he just got very pouty. And honestly, like what a way to go out, man, right? Like Allan Lichtman, like is really going out, like not in a good way. You could have just bowed out gracefully and said, I was wrong and just keep it moving. But you had to get the pouty face and start talking about how many books you wrote and then folding your arms. And what a way to go out, man. Aye. We want to go to part 2. You never think you see that from someone that's, so much older, right? Here's part 2 of that discussion with Cenk and Allan Lichtman.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, Professor, I know you got to leave us.
So we'll just do identity politics. And maybe
I don't know what just happened there. I don't know why it did that. So now I have to take it back to where I was. I don't even know where I was. I'm so sorry, guys. It was right with the part when he said, I know you have to go. Okay, right here. Here we go. All right.
Virus and saying that we have to have infrastructure and building, that helped working people in this country. But a lot of lies were told about that history.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, Professor, I know you got to leave us. So just, you wanted to jump in there.
Yeah. First of all, let me add a quick fact. There was no massive switch of black voters to Donald Trump. Donald Trump got 13% of the black vote, 11% the last time. That's 2% of a very small segment of voters. So that's one of the big myths of this election.
Nobody said it was massive black support. And I think it's interesting that Allan Lichtman is mentioning what he got from the black vote overall, but he's not mentioning that he did increase his support with black men. The exit polls that I saw showed that he got like 22% of support from black men, Donald Trump did, which is a significant increase from 2020 and 2016. So I didn't hear anybody say he got massive support from black people, but he did increase his supports. And as a Republican candidate, that needs to be looked at. So it just, like, this is the thing. You were biased, Allan. You were biased with this, and you taking this some kind of way.
Second big myth is that hindsight is 2020. We have a lot of Monday morning quarterbacks who, after the fact, are telling us what Harris should and should not have done. And half of them are saying she lost because she was too progressive. She was too open to the charge of being a radical, a socialist. The other half have said, of course, she lost because she wasn't progressive enough. We heard that from Cenk today. It's all sports talk radio without the entertainment. There is no way to know after the fact what she should or should not have done. If she had only done this or that, it would have made a difference.
Actually, there is a way to know, and that was talk to the voters. And people weren't just saying this after the election. People were warning people prior to the election. So if Allan Lichtman got his nose out his book and get those 13 keys out his ass, and he actually went out and talked to the voters, he would have known what people were saying and how people were feeling. We had a number of panels on this channel where a lot of people was like, no, I'm just sitting this one out. I'm not going to participate at all. I'm just going to sit this one out. We had a number there was one that was in person actually, but we had a number of conversation with people that were voters. And I kept telling people, I don't think, she's going to have a difficult time winning. And this is why. I said the same thing under Joe Biden. And this is why. You didn't actually talk to the voters. You just went by your 13 keys, your rich ass friends, and your PhDs. So that's part of the problem.
That's just hot air with absolutely no proof. The difference that I bring to the table is a track record of successful prediction based upon how American presidential elections have previously worked as pragmatic decision-making on whether or not the White House party has governed well enough. And then my analysis is based upon what's changed, what's shattered the pattern of 160 years of history. So I have a base for my analysis. I'm not just doing Monday morning quarterbacking. Cenk, you need to learn some manners. Your act is getting really thin.
I mean, brother.
I'm sorry. I thought it was funny. He dangled the keys in front of his face. I guess Allan Lichtman don't have a sense of humor. Don't take him to a comedy show. If you take Allan Lichtman to a comedy show, don't sit in the front row.
I said what was going to go wrong. It did go wrong. I was right. You were wrong in this election spectacularly so with your so-called keys. And now you come and tell us not the Monday morning
unlike you, I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong.
Are you ever going to learn the lessons?
Can I just ask, hang on. For those who have no idea what the key thing is all about, why are you flashing keys?
Okay, because this brother said that he had these keys and they were going to determine the outcome of the election, and all the keys were rigged in favor of incumbents. And I tried to explain to him, no, there are things outside of the keys. We literally had a debate, and I asked him, what if Joe Biden, this was back when he was defending Joe Biden, which now seems unconscionable, what if Biden came and punched the baby every single day? Would your keys still hold? And he said yes. Okay, well, then you're an unreasonable person.
I was right.
But what I'm most worried about is not the past,
Let me
it's the
explain
future.
Why. I was right.
I mean, listen to him.
About Biden.
You have no idea how absurd you sound. Okay.
He has a point. The keys favor incumbent, right?
But guys, the most important thing is not between me and Professor Lichtman. God bless you, brother. I know you did a lifetime's worth of work, and I feel a little bit bad about it. The reason I'm saying it is not to rub it in now. It's because I'm worried that in the next primary, you're going to tell people to vote for the establishment Democrat. That all of you on this panel are going to go, oh no, vote for the corporate robot, vote for the corporate robot. And that's going to destroy this party. That's why I'm fighting back so aggressively.
Give me a name.
No, vote for the populist left.
Give me a name.
Well, in the old days, it easily would have been Bernie Sanders.
Who is it now?
Too old. So, look, I would start considering Sean Fain, head of the UAW, Sean O'Brien, head of the Teamsters, Jon Stewart. Go outside of politics. Almost everyone in politics is already corrupted.
He's right. You have to go outside. You have to go outside. Union president, I don't see that as a bad idea. I don't agree with Jon Stewart. I don't know how I feel. Again, I told you guys about how I feel about celebrities. I don't know how I feel about celebrities running for office. Like I don't I don't want to dip my hand in that. So I don't know how I feel about celebrity politician. Like I just don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I think Jon Stewart is, a funny comedian, and I think that, if he were to run for president, and then if he were to win, then it's like, where do you draw the line, right? Like, where do you put aside the comedy and all that kind of stuff? I don't know. I don't know. I also don't consider Jon Stewart to be progressive, but I could see like unions, like your everyday work and like I could see that. Like with Sean Fain or the Shawns, I could see that, and I think that would really speak to working class people. But yeah, not the DC swamp people. I think Cenk is right about that. I think you need to go outside.
Someone who is not corrupted and who's for the average man.
Harry, you're shaking your head, but I mean, Jon Stewart, if he could be persuaded, I would imagine could be very good as a candidate, couldn't he?
No, I don't take objection to Jon Stewart. I just think we have some people in the Democratic Party who are very talented right now.
Of course he would say that because he's paid by the Democratic Party as a Dem influencer. We covered this guy before, Harry Sisson and his friend Chris. They're paid the Dem influencers. Like that's what they do. There are a couple of people that are influencers that are being paid by different consulting groups to push and promote the Democratic Party. So listen to who he says. This is interesting.
Who could be the Democratic nominee? Governor Shapiro won Pennsylvania by like 20 points.
Governor Shapiro, the guy who called the Palestinian protesters anti-Semitic. Listen to who he recommends. AIPAC guy. Next.
Westmore in Maryland.
Westmore in Maryland. AIPAC. Next.
How much more connected to people do you need other than like Westmore, who's great? Raphael Warnock from Georgia won a swing state and is a senator from a swing state. Gretchen Whitmer, who had a trifecta in Michigan for the first time in a long time.
Gretchen Whitmer is not, if you think Kamala Harris had a bad time. So none of those people are progressive. They're all establishment Democrats. But again, he's a paid Democrat influencer. He's paid to promote Democratic Party. Al Lichtman, I think, can I call you Al? Al, you must have taken this pretty hard because you guys know he quit Twitter right after this. Breaking news. Professor Allan Lichtman, who predicted that Kamala Harris would win the presidency, has just announced he is deactivating his X account and leaving. So, I guess, Allan Lichtman must have had a really bad breakdown. I am done with X. I will be deactivating my account soon. The good news is I'll be over on Blue Sky. You can follow me there. So all the butthurt people seem to be leaving Twitter and going to Blue Sky. Damn, Al. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.